Hello and welcome to Ode to Games. I'm Kevin Valleen, joined alongside Logan Plant. How you doing, Logan?
I'm doing well. I have a little bit of show and tell I'd like to do real quick, Kevin.
Okay. Can I introduce
Last
Zach
week,
first, or does
oh,
he
you
not
can,
exist yet?
you
Okay, we
can.
also
He
have
he
Zach
can
Ross.
In the
How you
exist.
show
doing,
and
Zach?
tell. He's just showing me off.
Zach,
His
you're
good
here.
friend Zach,
Whoa,
also on Ode to Games.
cool. All right, what you got?
What do you
Last
actually have?
Friday, the 26th, was a huge amiibo day, so I just want to show off the haul. We
Cool.
got we got Banjo and Kazooie, which is a top tier amiibo. If you're watching the video version, you can see this. We got Terry. He's got those feet pegs that everybody loves.
Ooh,
With
hot.
some of the amiibo. We have one I care very little about, Byleth.
I
Whatever.
left.
But you gotta get him.
A crown jewel I just got today, the new Monster Hunter
Ooh,
Magnum
that looks
Holo
good.
amiibo.
That thing
This-
is
This is
massive.
a big boy.
Yeah, he takes up way more than just a
Yeah.
little bottom stand.
Yeah, he's like overlapping it by he needs double the size stand
Yep.
if it were to actually rest on the ground. It's enormous, but really detailed figure. So yeah, amiibo limping along, still alive, but barely. The amiibo website hasn't even updated to say that the Monster Hunter ones exist. It doesn't even have them
It's
on
just
there, which I think
Smash?
is yeah, it's really weird.
I mean, at this point, it really is just Smash, and then Capcom's just like, "Hey, we'll make a couple, I guess."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's it's the only other company that's doing them after Nintendo for Smash, basically. Speaking of Monster Hunter, Monster Hunter Rise is out. We've got some other new games that came out this last week. It Takes Two and rolled out that we want to talk about, but the biggest one, of course, would be Monster Hunter Rise, as we talked about last week. Pre-recorded show last week, so we didn't get to talk about it. So this week we're gonna do it. So basically, I'm gonna step aside for like a half an hour and just let you guys talk about your experiences in the first week or so of Monster Hunter Rise. So I guess take it away with that. I'll take a break.
We are 30 hours in to
How many-
Monster Hunter Rise.
How many days has it been since it came out? 6 days?
It's been less than a week.
Yeah, less than a week.
So
yeah,
solid
there
like
was-
5 to 10 hours a day.
There was a point where it had been out for 48 hours and we had played it for 24 hours. So half of the hours had been spent within Monster Hunter Rise. It was an incredible launch. It was a ton of fun and we liked the game a lot. Zach, I guess we can start with your general impressions of it.
Yeah, generally, I absolutely love it. I had pretty high expectations coming out of Monster Hunter World. We had devoted a lot of time to that game. We became big fans of the franchise. So this was the first big release since then that we were super excited for. And the hype just kept growing and growing. And I'm happy to say that it's lived up to those expectations. I love Rise so much. It feels so fluid. One of the big concerns I had coming into it was that I was worried that the combat was going to be clunky for a long time before I got used to it. But I seemed to fall into a groove way faster than I was expecting. You actually are able to, figure out this layout of using the wire bug and the weapons to the best of their abilities, and you start to gradually figure out how it works. And the game does a really good job at, giving you the capability to either practice yourself or teaching you some moves and a bunch of different moves to augment your playing style. So it went along a lot smoother than I was expecting it to. And I picked a new weapon right off the bat, something that was a bit of a brass decision. I went hammer. I've had very little hammer in the Monster Hunter universe, so it was a new experience. I think it's amazing. I grew very fond of it. Logan had a bit of a harder time deciding what he wanted to do.
I had some issues.
Yep.
But you're in love with the hammer still.
Yeah, absolutely. At 30 hours in, I'm absolutely enjoying the crap out of this weapon. It is so much fun. It's a big ball on a stick that you just want to aim for the head, and then they're down for the count. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I decided I was going to start with the hunting horn, which is a musical weapon where you play these songs to give buffs to you and your teammates, and it also can do some pretty hefty damage. Did not vibe with it. I really wanted to, but I just didn't like it. And then I switched to the longsword, which I used a little bit in World for like probably 20 or 30 missions, and I thought it was fun, but just not as fun as the switch axe, which was my main thing in World. And Then I switched to the Switch Axe, and I have not looked back since. I've definitely played the most with it now. It's different enough that it still feels fresh, even though I'm using the same weapon that I used in Monster Hunter World and Iceborne. They added a ton to it, which just it's so satisfying, morphing between this giant axe and this giant sword, and the different benefits, the pros and cons that each version of your weapon has is super fun to balance and manage. So yeah, I've been really impressed by the combat, and I think something I've been the most impressed by with this game is how well it looks and runs. This, I think, is probably the best looking Switch game. It is absolutely gorgeous. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is on Switch, and it's a ported 3DS game, and it looks like a ported 3DS game. It's not that pretty, but this game looks so much closer to World than it does to Generations Ultimate. It's a gorgeous game. It's extremely smooth. There's only rare occasions where the frame rate dips at all. It's just beautiful. The monsters look great. The areas look great. And we've been playing in online lobbies and haven't dropped once. It's seamless to set up a lobby and drop in. So just from a visual and technical standpoint, the game is amazing.
Yeah, I honestly don't understand how they were able to achieve such fast load times, especially since the maps that you load into, they're not the old-fashioned type of maps where it's sectioned off and you have loading times between every section of the map. It's just one big map like in World.
Yeah.
So they're just loading that whole thing in and you're ready to go on that mission like very, very quickly, which is super impressive. Which really makes, hopping in and out of hunts way easier. And another thing on that is that you no longer have or just required to join hunts from a quest board. You can actually do it from anywhere in the multiplayer hub from your menu. It's very seamless. This is a lot more multiplayer friendly. In most ways, the entire game is not multiplayer. It's sectioned off between single player and multiplayer, which is something we were a little hesitant going into because we wanted to do basically all the multiplayer right off the bat. So we were a little confused on if we would be able to, because it is a little confusing. We figured it out in the end. The early game is pretty much set up in single player. So you could technically start off in the multiplayer, do all of that, but then you kind of get locked. Or how does it work, Logan?
Yeah, so there's two separate types of quests. There's village quests, which are single player, and there's hub quests, which are multiplayer. And at a certain point in the story shifts from the village quests to the hub quests. So it's designed that you go in and you do all the village quests and level your guy up, and then you go into the multiplayer hub and jump into those more difficult, designed for multiple people quests and pick up the story from there. But I think we kind of had a good hack for it, I think, where what we did is we jumped into the hub quests first, and the first half of the hub quest have nothing to do with the story, and the second half do. So we played up to the point where the story picks up in the multiplayer. We were extremely overpowered for the single player quest, so then we took like a 3-hour break from multiplayer and just tore through the single player quest because we were so leveled up, and we caught up back to the point in the story where you can go and pick up those multiplayer quests. So it's not the most elegant way to play through the game, and I think there are some drawbacks to it. For example, there's some really cool monsters that the reveals are just kind of spoiled because you launch a multiplayer quest and it's like, oh, go hunt a Magnamalo, which is the amiibo that I showed you earlier. It's the cover monster of the game. It's the big bad of the first half of the story. And it's just like, yep, go hunt a Magnamalo. You show up, there's no fanfare. When in World, Kevin, you probably remember this. You jump into a mission and it's like a question mark. It's like there's some monster in the ancient forest. You go find it, and then there's this really cool reveal cutscene. Of course, the problem there was that you had to see the cutscene alone and then back out and jump into multiplayer. There's fortunately nothing like that in the multiplayer quest in Rise. You can jump in as a duo from the very start every time.
That's nice.
So that's really nice. But there's just some of the fanfare and the pizzazz, I think, is taken away from the monster reveals when you know what they are going into the hunt. There's no big, like, what's that thing lurking over the hill? Because you know what you're looking for right away. So that's a bit of some epic moments that I think were kind of removed just from the structure of single player being sectioned off from multiplayer.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the intro cutscenes for all the monsters were pretty much locked to single player, so there was very little fanfare if you do start with the multiplayer. And one of the benefits of doing single player first is that if you do single player first and move into multiplayer, it does offer this option, this quest that we never even got to see because we skipped this whole thing by doing multiplayer first. But you're able to skip the beginning parts of multiplayer if you do single player, so you don't have to redo all of those fights. You can hop into the part where the story picks up as long as you do these professional license exams or whatever they're called.
Yeah, the first half of multiplayer is essentially retreading the single player.
Yep.
So if you do it in the right order, you can just bypass that, which is really nice. And I've heard that's a complaint from previous classic Monster Hunter games, is that you finally beat single player and then you kind of have to retread all those quests. And so that's not a thing in this one if you don't want it to be, which is nice. But other than that slight hiccup with the single player quests, I think that the quests have been super fun. I really like the layout. Basically, you're given like, here's 7 quests that you can do, pick 5 of them, and then you can progress to the next level. So you kind of get to pick and choose which monsters you want to fight, which has been nice for us because we've been skipping some of the monsters that were in Monster Hunter World and fighting some of the new ones or returning ones from previous games we've never seen before. So that's nice. The gameplay is so streamlined with the wire bug, which is the new mechanic where you can swing around on this rope and every weapon has these new wire bug specific moves, and the palamute, which is the dog friend that you can ride around on and hop off and climb up walls with, and it just makes getting to the monster way faster. And it's so streamlined that the game's almost too easy, I think we've thought. Monster Hunter World kicked our butts at times. The Anjanath fight is the first big wall you hit in that game, and that was back when all 3 of us were playing. That thing kicked our butts.
Yeah, we were on that for a while.
Yeah, we had to like reevaluate our loadouts and our weapons and our strategies to go fight that thing, and it was brutal, and it took like 45 minutes to take that thing down. And I don't know if it's because we played so much World and Iceborne that we're just really proficient at the game now. But I think across the board, I've seen people think that the game is generally a lot easier. What do you think of that, Zach?
Yeah, I get that it's hard for us to tell considering we spent so much time in World and we became very good at general Monster Hunter. This game does play differently from World, and we did have a bit of a learning curve coming into it where we had to figure out how to do it. I do believe it is easier. I think it is generally been known that they said they're trying to make it easier. They reduced item costs so you can try out more weapons, lots of different stuff. The RNG is still difficult sometimes when you're looking for that, but basically the new Wyvern writing system also makes it a lot easier, where you're able to just unleash a bunch of damage onto the monster. I think there is a case to be made that it does add a lot of general stuff to make the game easier, but it's still challenging at times, especially if you
failed a couple of quests.
Yeah. Depending on how you go about this game, you will run into some difficult moments. Some monsters that will, especially around the high rank times, when you're first coming into high rank out of low rank, like nothing in low rank really poses much of a threat, but those jumps, especially when you're not really expecting them, can prove to be a challenge at times. Definitely not as much so as Monster Hunter World, of course, but not the easiest thing if you're worried that this game is, basically for children, which I don't think, you could find your challenge if you look hard enough. So
yeah, and I think it'll get added over time as well. I mean, they have a huge title update coming. That's something I feel like when we were playing, Zach, we kind of felt like the game isn't totally finished. Which is interesting.
Even from the start, like, because with World, right, it's like a lot of like quests that you get after the main story. Right? Is there stuff that they still need to add to the main game that's missing?
I just heard that once you beat the main story, there's not a lot to do. Which is, I mean, we're 30 hours in and not even close to being done with the content. Yeah. So it's just expectations of Monster Hunter being this multi-100-hour experience. It's not there yet, but it gets there over time. They're going to add so much to this game, so I'm not worried about it. And they are already announcing huge title updates just in this month in April. So I think it'll add a lot of endgame content.
I believe it was called a revised ending or something like that.
Yeah, they're adding a new ending to the game in one of the updates.
I'm not sure what that means.
It's also a clue to me that it's not done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're actually not done with the main story yet. We haven't even gotten there yet. And we're over 30 hours, almost 30 hours in.
Shout out to the people that have already finished it and gotten to the end game. The dedication.
And then also there's... what did I want to say? Oh, that one of the other issues I have with the game, this isn't a big thing. It's just something that I've kind of been thinking about since we've been playing this, is thinking about Monster Hunter World. It really feels so organic when you go into these areas and you see just these giant beasts marching around these areas like they live there. And you see two monsters get to the same area and you see a turf war trigger and they just start beating the crap out of each other. And it feels like you're an intruder on these lands to hunt these beasts and get their parts. It feels like you're not supposed to be there. It's frightening and it's unwelcoming. And that's a really cool vibe in Monster Hunter World that, for a number of reasons, I think is missing in Monster Hunter Rise. I think because the monsters are easier, you're not as scared walking around that something's going to roll into a fight and just start beating you senseless. You mentioned the new Wyvern riding technique, Zach. To just elaborate on what that is a little bit. Instead of mounting monsters, where you like jump off cliffs and land on them, and if you're lucky, it triggers a mount, and then you have to ride around until you can bring them down. Instead, when two monsters get together, basically 100% of the time, you'll have the option to board one of them. And then you take control of the monster and you ride them around. You can ram them into walls. You can ram them into the other monster you're fighting. And it happens every time. And mounting is like this. Is it going to happen? Zach, I'm going to go climb up this mountain so I can leap off and try and get on this thing. But with Wyvern riding, it's like a known quantity. You know it's going to happen when the monster shows up. And I think there's a number of reviews that say this. It's like when a monster shows up to a fight in Monster Hunter World, you're like, oh God, what's going to happen? But in Monster Hunter Rise, it's like, oh, here's this tool that I can now use to make my hunt easier. And I think the Palamute's also a part of that because you soar through these areas so quickly, which is fun. The Palamute's a lot of fun, but you don't spend as much time in it. In World, the monster runs away all the time and it goes to sleep and it does all these other things. And in Rise, you catch up to the monster so quickly, it's kind of like you're always fighting it. And so there's just a number of small things that kind of make the hunts feel less momentous and honestly a little bit less memorable. Like, I feel like you think about the big fights in World and there's all these moments you remember, and in Rise, I don't really feel like I have that so far. And I still think the fights are really good, but I think it's just missing that X factor, which maybe if the fights were more difficult, if they add more endgame monsters, that could be fixed. And it's not a huge deal. It's just coming from over 300 hours in World, and then compared to this, that it really jumped out to me. Zach, did you notice anything like that?
Yeah, just on to the point where it does make it easier. I mean, even if a monster doesn't roll into your fight, you're still able to get that mount if you do a significant amount of type of damage to them and you get onto the Wyvern riding system. You have enough time on that monster and the complete control to go across the map and just find another monster, and then you can knock that monster down. So you have so much control over the monster, and that does attest to them becoming less of a threat. And I don't think we've ever spent more than 30 minutes in a quest. We've just been, a lot of these just been breezing through because of those systems do make it a little easier and a little less of a spectacle. There's still been some really cool monsters that have left some impressions on me, like Gossarog. That's Logan's new favorite monster of all time. I love the Bishaten. So all the new monsters are cool. We love their designs, but there haven't been those specific moments that have really made us sweat.
Yeah, and I think part of that's also just that the Switch is a little bit more limited technically. You think about the areas in World, and it's like the ancient forest, you're on top, and the rocks break, and the water starts pouring down, and you fall down like 500 feet. The maps just aren't that big here, and there's not as much going on. And I do want to make it clear, I still really love the game. It's just, if I had to point out a couple things I'm just slightly disappointed in, it's that. But Zach, you brought up the monsters. I do want to talk about them, because I think this lineup of monsters is incredible. I think it's so good. I think there are so many varied types of monsters. In World, it's a lot of like dragons and dinosaur looking things and very similar like shaped monsters. But in Rise, they're going off the chain with the different types of beasts in this thing.
Oh yeah. And we had a little bit of a complaint where it starts off with a bunch of great Ragi, great Baggy, great Azuchi. Yeah. They really leaned into
no great Jagras.
No great Jagras. There's the little Jagras are there, which is confusing, but no great Jagras. And then a Royal Ludroth, which is basically just a great Ludroth, except it's big. So, it was hard to differentiate those in the beginning. I've kind of figured out which ones are which, but after that, it's just a slew of spectacularly cool monsters. Everything they've added, I've loved. There isn't a monster that I particularly dislike. So I think in terms of as a whole of all they have added, they're great. A lot of additions from World, new World monsters that have only appeared in World or few other games have made their way to Rise, so which is good for people who haven't played World. They just went to Rise. However many people that are, they actually get a chance to fight these monsters like the Toby Kadachi, the Puke, all that good stuff. So that's good too. Seeing some of those fights, they started off in the high rank, so they were a little more threatening than we probably saw them as.
Yeah, because they were the losers of World now that we were so high level. But it's like in Rise, we're like, oh, they can actually hit us hard right now. It was funny.
Yeah, the Barrett, one of the ugly, and the Gyarados. There were some ugly picks that made it into this game, but that's fine. All of the new additions, excluding the Kazoo, were absolutely amazing.
Yeah, just to describe my favorite real quick, and if Zach wants to describe his too, just to kind of get an idea of how different they can be in this game. The Goss Harag is this giant Yeti who uses ice to make swords that he's on 2 feet, and he holds these giant ice swords that he creates. And in the first half of the fight, he just makes 1, and then when he's like on his last legs, he makes 2, and he's dual wielding these giant ice blades, and he can whack it into the ground, and it lifts up the ground and knocks you into the air, and it's just such a cool fight. He's just a really awesome monster, and like a bipedal Yeti is something really different than anything that we've really seen before. I love that fight.
Yeah, I love that fight too. He is absolutely one of the more scary monsters, I would say, because when he makes his swords, he likes to do his slow walk towards you, and it's never good when a monster is moving slowly towards you. It's always scary. So my favorite addition was a little earlier on. It's the Bishaten. The Bishaten is a monkey type monster. I don't know his technical classification. He's got like a bird beak.
He's like a flying monkey bird.
Like a flying monkey bird. So he's super cool. And his main gimmick is that he bounces around on his tail. So he's super mobile, and he throws persimmons, which is a fruit, I believe, that he just pulls them out of nowhere and just chucks them at you the whole fight. They're either poison, flashbang, jumbo, all that kind of stuff. And if you knock him down, sometimes you can pick them up and then use them, like eat them or throw them or whatever have you. So that's a cool gimmick that not a lot of monsters have, is using their own weapons against them. And he even has the ability to use his tail to hang from stuff, so he can be hanging and throwing it. He'll probably be out of reach from you. So a lot of cool gimmicks there, and I think he looks super cool, and he was one of my most anticipated monsters from the trailer. So definitely love that fight. I think he's my favorite addition so far.
Yeah, he's really cool too, and there's so many more that are
still
really
a couple we haven't
awesome.
even seen yet.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, there's a
spider. We got
spider, and the final boss who they've hinted at.
Yeah,
Udushi. I don't remember what he's called.
Yeah, so it's really great. I guess to wrap up, I love how it looks and feels. The gameplay is fantastic. It's so streamlined, which is, I think, really good for Switch, because if you want to just boot it up on the go and play a quick hunt, you can do that, because they're a lot faster in this one because of the Palamute and the wire bug, and other quality of life improvements. It's just, I'm really excited to see where it goes with the title updates, I'll say, because it is just a touch too easy right now, but I think that will be fixed. I think some of the content they add later on will be for the more hardcore fans who want a little bit more challenge, but I mean, we played it for 30 hours, so we obviously love it a lot so far. So it definitely is living up to the hype, and yeah, I'm excited for this game to get support for the next couple of years.
Flip.
All right. Is that it for Monster Hunter? For this week, at least.
I think so.
We'll probably have it beat by next week, because I think we're really close. So
got another 30 hours to set aside to beat this game next week?
Probably not.
Well, I'm glad you're having a good time with it. And yeah, if Monster Hunter World and Iceborne are indicative of anything, it's that this game should have a lot of support and a lot of post-game content, especially for the people that stick around. It seems like those fights and that extra content was more tailored to the people that they knew were sticking around past the main story. So I would assume it'd be something similar here.
Yeah, and it's already shipped 4 million copies.
Yeah, that's a lot.
In the first weekend,
Solid
which
start.
is crazy. For an exclusive, a Switch exclusive, I think this game's going to sell like crazy. So yeah, I think it'll probably get an Iceborne-like expansion at some point even. which is just really exciting. It's exciting to have another Monster Hunter. We only had put it world down for like 4 months, but
It was a
felt
rough
like
4
long
months.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Brutal.
yeah.
Nice. All right, so we got 2 more new games that came out this week that we still need to talk about. Why don't we go with It Takes Two first, so I can say a few words before we swing it back over to Logan for rolled out. So I've been playing It Takes Two. I had 1 session of playing it with my girlfriend, and it was good. It was a good time. I think I haven't gotten as attached to the characters yet as I did in A Way Out, but it has made up for it so far in the variety of gameplay that it gives you. And I remember what Joseph Fares, the director of the game, was talking about how he basically wanted you doing a new thing like all the time. And that's already been the case. I mean, they're giving
so
you
cool.
Like at the start you're just doing like some platforming things, and then it gives you a hammer and a nail that you have to use for certain platforming and puzzle elements, and then you go to and then you use that for the boss fight, and then you go to another section where you get this like basically like a glue gun that shoots like explosive goo, and then someone like shoots it and it blows up. So it's like constantly changing up what you're doing in each of these areas with new little gimmicks and things. And it is a lot more platforming based, of course. A Way Out, was not really a platform. It was more of like just an exploration with some like combat elements. So I think that, like we were talking about earlier before the game came out, I think that its setting lends itself way more to these varied gameplay styles that that the director wanted you to have. And I guess I'm usually not too big onto like puzzle games or something like that, but what I will say is that there are some sections with puzzle elements, puzzle platforming sections, that I think have been really fun to have with 2 players. And I'm sure that this is what people feel like when they play like Portal or something like that. I have not played those games, but just that feeling of like, I hate it when I'm really struggling on a puzzle, so it's nice to have someone else there to be like, oh, this is what you do, and it's fun to like figure those things out together, figure out the puzzles, and then platform through the sections. I like the boss fights too. They use the gimmick of that area in the boss fight. We've already gone through 2 boss fights, and they've been a bunch of fun using some of the mechanics that you learn throughout. And then you're like, all right, now you have to use them here in the boss fight section. The little games that they have you do, like in the last one, you had the like popping wheelies or something, or
Yep, on the wheelchair.
Yeah, like playing checkers,
darts.
I think.
Yeah.
What is it? Connect 4 that you have. Uh-huh. They have those types of games here, but from what we found, they don't seem to be particularly balanced very well. So in the first game, my girlfriend like swept the floor with me, and I didn't. It was a game where she had the hammer and I was trying to like pop up and do like a whack-a-mole thing, and I had to survive up. But it was like I had to stay up for so long to get the point that she would get me almost every time. And then there was another one where it was like she had the hammer on the bottom and I had the nail, and I had to throw the nail down onto these little like glowing spots to get points, and she would have to do it with the hammer. But because I was up higher, I could like go much quicker and just tear through and get all the points before she could get to the sections to hit it with her hammer. So far, those games haven't been particularly balanced. So we've played them once, and we're like, all right, cool, and then moved on to the next. But I think that where this game really shines is in the platforming puzzle sections, and the fact that you really are changing up how you're thinking about each of these areas, because it uses like obviously similar ideas with platforming, but since you have a new tool or a new mechanic to use each time, it's always a little bit different. From here, it's like, oh, I need to use this nail to throw it against this wall so that you can use the hammer and swing across to the next one, where it's like, oh, I've got the exploding goo, so I need to shoot it onto this part so you can blow it up so it brings this platform down, and then we hop on there and then use that. And I'm looking forward to seeing how many more new ideas there are, because we're not super far into it, maybe about 2 hours. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of the new ideas, because from what we've played so far, I've been pleasantly surprised with the varied gameplay styles that it has, and I've heard that there's nothing but more of that in there. And I hope that I get more attached to the characters too.
It's such a cool concept for this team to go next after A Way Out, which already tried to introduce all these wacky things, but within a like the real world. Just to see them go totally imaginary and fantasy with it is super cool. And I've heard it's like 15 hours, so I'm sure there's going to be just dozens of new mechanics as you guys keep going through, which is really exciting. But yeah, I heard the story isn't great, which is disappointing after how good A Way Out was.
Yeah,
but if the gameplay really, really shines, then I think that's okay.
Yeah, and so far it's held up that end. It is just a little bit disappointing though. Like as where we're at in this game, I don't think that the ending to A Way Out just hit quite hard. So so far I don't see this game delivering that, which sucks because that was I don't know if a game has really made me feel like that, like A Way Out did. But as long as the gameplay holds up its end of the bargain, I think it'll be more than worth it. And so far, I think it has.
Cool.
Yeah. When
That's
you
exciting.
Gonna get to it.
We're all in full Rise mode right now. So.
It's on the back burner. It came out at an unfortunate time, but it's definitely something we'll get to eventually.
Balan Wonderworld's also out.
That's first on the list.
Yeah.
All right. Still more new stuff that came out, and it's not Balan Wonderworld. It's Rolled Out.
Oh man, Rolled Out is so good.
How long have we been waiting for it? How long have you been waiting for this?
Years.
I backed it almost 2 years ago. So it has been a long wait, and it's been worth it. It's just an early access version right now, and Rolled Out is a spiritual successor to Super Monkey Ball, made by a bunch of hardcore Monkey Ball fans who made what Sega refuses to, for some reason, a classic Monkey Ball sequel to Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2 from the good old days of the franchise. And wow, it feels like Super Monkey Ball 3, legitimately. It is so good and completely understands what made Monkey Ball 1 and 2 the best marble games there's ever been. I've played so many of these marble games, and none of them even come close to Super Monkey Ball 2 specifically, but also 1. And this game, it just, the physics engine and just the vibe and feel of it just is Monkey Ball. The way that the camera trails behind, which some people have a hard time getting used to not being able to control the camera, but I was able to hop right into it because I played so much of these original 2 games, and the level design is just superb, and it has the bumpers from the Monkey Ball levels. It has these like cut out squares and triangles in the floor, which look exactly like they do in some of the Super Monkey Ball 2 levels. But it's also not afraid to introduce some new mechanics. It has these spinners, which so it's like these big circular platforms with these 2 walls on either side, and if you run up into the wall, you can actually rotate these circles, and it uses those in really smart ways, whether that's opening platforms or it uses the launchers where if you like hit the wall, it like shoots your character directly the other direction from where you collided. And so there's this one level where you have to like rotate the wall to line it up with the platform you can see way on the other end of the level and then launch yourself there. And it's just so smart how it builds upon these levels. The locations are really cool. There's these random backdrops like Monkey Ball, like you're in a steam pot with carrots for no reason. It's just like that in this game.
That's the one I remember.
Yep,
I remember that one too.
It's just like that where you're like, why is that here? Why am I here? But it doesn't matter. And it's just so good. Some of the new ideas don't hit. There's like this sticky goo that allows you to like go up walls and things like that. And that some of those ideas feel a little half-baked. But I'm happy that they tried new things. It has this perfect mix of bringing back old Monkey Ball mechanics and introducing new ones. And really, I'm just happy with how it feels. It just, I just dropped right in. I have a USB GameCube, a third-party GameCube controller that I just plugged into my laptop and booted up the game, and it felt like I was booting up the Monkey Ball sequel that was never made. So it's amazing. I love it. I'm so excited to see the full version, which is going to have party games. It's going to have a level creator. It's going to have online and local multiplayer. It's going to be such a full-fledged thing when it comes out. So yeah, just this little taste in early access, which has like over 100 levels in this early access, has been awesome. Beginner was just the right difficulty. Advanced was just right. Expert's kicking my butt. It's exactly what I want. So yeah, I think I was texting you guys that I couldn't be happier with this game. It's so exciting. that it's finally here, and that it's as good as it is, because you look at something like Mighty Number 9, sometimes these spiritual successors flop hard, but rolled out is just, it's just perfect. I think it's better than any new Monkey Ball game Sega could make. So,
I think it's interesting,
yeah.
like you bring up Mighty Number 9, but that was made by some of the original creators.
The creator,
and I think
yeah.
I think it's funny. You look at some of these spiritual successors that hit it super well. When you were talking about Rolled Out, I was thinking of Stardew Valley, of just like fans knowing somehow they know more than the original developers of what would make this game good. It's like they've been playing it for years and they're like, all of this stuff is really good, but we could maybe remove this and add a bunch of this, and they just make something completely different and even better than the originals could be in some ways.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and something completely new they added, which I think could blow my mind in some of the harder levels. I haven't had to use it yet. There's a way you can slow down time. So you pick up coins, which are the replacement for bananas, and yes, they still add to your life total, but they also fill up this meter that if you hold down a shoulder button, the whole world, including your monkey, slows down. Or I guess it's a rat in this version.
Can't have monkeys.
Morris, I think is his name. And it just slows down everything, and you can get a read on what's happening. And I think in some of the brutal levels later on, that could be a game changer. And I'm excited to see, once I get that far, how they use that. I'm playing it legit. You can do free play where you can just see all the levels and you have like 10,000 lives. But I'm trying to play it the classic Monkey Ball way, where if you get a game over, you got to start and just work to get better. So yeah, it's so good, and I just want it on a console. That's my main thing right now. I don't love playing games on my PC, so just put this thing on Switch, let me plug in my GameCube controller, and I'll be set.
Have they said that they're planning to bring it to console later or anything on that?
I think it's something they'd like to do. They haven't made like a concrete announcement that they're going to bring it to consoles, but I think it's inevitable. I think it'll probably be on PC. The full version will definitely come out on PC first, and maybe a year later we'll see it on console. But I'll buy it twice. I'll buy it on PC and I'll buy it on Switch. Maybe hopefully a physical version when it comes out.
Nice. Glad that's living up. You never know with these games if they turn out well, if they turn out to be crap. So it's good that it's really nice when they actually do turn out the way you want them to.
Yeah, it's so good.
All right, 40 minutes in. Do we want to hit the news here?
Oh, I just remembered. We also played Fall Guys Season 4.
Oh,
which
yeah,
was new.
all right. Never mind.
Yeah,
Let's keep going past
it's
the
pretty
40-minute
different.
mark. Fall Guys, I have not played it. How's it been?
Zach?
Yeah, so we started Fall Guys Season 4. Actually started a while ago. It's been going for a couple weeks now.
Almost 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, almost 2 weeks. It is futuristic is the theme of this season, I think, is the technical. Fall Guys 2077 or something like that. You know how it goes.
4041 is the year.
4041.
Wow, we're going way in the future.
And along with the new season, there has been a bunch of additions. The most notable, I would say, is the squad mode. So Logan and I have been doing a lot of squad mode, which is where teams of 4 you either win or lose as a team of 4. So it's no longer a single victory for a person. You can actually win as a group, which a lot of people have been requesting. It moves away from the position based like first place, second place, third place. Everything gets replaced with points. So the person who gets first place gets 60 points. The person who gets last place gets like 1 point. All the points get added, and if your team falls within the most amount of points, you move on to the next round. And then when you get to the final round, if the one person on your team wins the round, the whole team wins. The nice thing about that is that it makes it easier to consistently win. However, you only get 1/3 of a crown every time you win in squad mode, which is a little weird.
Lame.
Yeah, they've added crown pieces, and it's 60 pieces to get a crown, and you get 20 for winning a squad mode.
Okay.
I think that the way they implemented squad mode into almost all of the maps was pretty flawless. I like the way they did it with the point-based system. I think it works really well. And if there's only 3 of you, you go in, you match with someone who's alone, and then there's a squad of 4. So you have to have a squad of 4. You may get someone who's not even there. Logan and I got someone who was not actually playing. We won anyways.
We won with an AFK teammate, and it was our 4th win in a row. And then we lost the 5th.
I wasn't gonna say it. Logan's still pretty upset that he lost us the fifth round.
You specifically did, huh?
It was a survival game, and I died with 5 seconds left, and that was enough to eliminate us.
Oh,
But yeah, it was.
We don't
devastating.
actually blame him. It was the snowball survival, which is such a wild card.
Yeah, but squad mode is awesome. I actually like squad mode more than the new games. Like that's the highlight of the season for me is this new mode. And Kev, we got to jump in a squad of 3 and find a random fourth and get you and get a win.
we do, yeah.
Kevin hasn't had a win yet.
I do, yeah. I do
This
need
would
to get
be
a win.
we just got to win 3 squads, and you'll have that win.
Yeah, yeah.
First
But
earned
what
crown.
that would mean though is that makes the 5 wins probably a little bit more attainable, huh?
Oh yeah, a lot easier.
Does.
Because
We've had a 4-win streak and like a 3-win streak already.
Because for a while it was only getting harder with all of the new games, right? So it's nice that it kind of swings back around and makes it a little bit more possible.
Yeah, for sure.
It is
What I really
nice
like too is
that
that the finale in the squad mode, it can be like a hexagon and just if last man standing wins for their team.
Yeah.
But it can also be a team game. So it can be like fall ball, winner
Oh
wins
my
game.
god.
Which is really
We've
cool.
had
It's
that.
fun playing those as finales. I actually really like that change.
Good old fall ball.
Or it could be like a bigger like survival team game like Jinx. We've had Jinx finale now where it's the first team to get grabbed loses. So it definitely opens up to a lot of new possibilities. They've also increased the amount of level in this season, so up to level 50 instead of level 40 now, which is nice. Some new crossovers. Kizuna AI, I don't even know what that is. There's an Among Us skin now.
First crossover.
What?
Which crossover?
A Murder by Numbers crossover.
Oh yeah,
Really?
that's a
Yeah,
new
Why?
announced
I'm excited
one.
about that one.
Why?
Yeah.
How did-
I was
They
gonna
just do
send
a
it to
ton of
Logan.
indie ones. They do so many indie
Yeah, but I
games.
saw that
This
you
is-
liked it on. I saw you liked it on Twitter, so I wasn't gonna. So, all right, he already knows
Speaking
about
of
it.
Murder by Numbers,
Yeah.
I picked
So that was
up
super
recently.
cool.
Oh, you did?
It
Nice.
was on sale and it was half off.
Oh,
Really good.
Yeah.
yeah. Are there any other big additions to this season other than the crown? They added challenges now. So there's like mini challenges that get you crown pieces or star points. So it just feels like there's a lot going on right now with a lot of different points. Like there's fame points, there's crown pieces, there's crowns, there's
there's kudos, which
all
is
that
the money.
kudos.
Yeah, there's a ton going on.
Well,
which,
look,
I mean, it's
when-
fun.
When you get some of these games, they got to have like 20 different types of currency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always got to keep adding.
And in terms of the new games, I know Logan's not a huge fan of a lot of them, but I think that there's a solid amount of new stuff in there, especially the races and some of the team games. Like there's a one where you hold on to a battery and you try to Splatoon your way into making the most color on the map.
It's really cool.
So yeah, definitely some good additions. Overall, a pretty solid season, I'd say.
And what a huge week
lot of
for
time into it.
games. My goodness.
I know.
A lot going on. We haven't really talked about new games for a while. And here we go,
Yeah.
talk about them for 45 minutes.
Yeah,
Oh, we saw this coming. March 26th was a big day.
It was. It was. Also, if you haven't been keeping up, Battlefield Wonderworld is out, and it is apparently as bad as everyone was
It's
worried
horrible.
/ hoped for.
Wonderworld. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's bad. And there you go. Why don't we hop into the news?
Let's start with the biggest story, and that is Days Gone is coming to PlayStation Plus this month, along with Zombie Army 4, Dead War, and Oddworld Soulstorm, which is new.
Yeah,
it's
I
coming
saw
to
that.
PS.
Doing the PS5 games again.
Yeah, which I'm excited about that one.
If I had a PS5, I would absolutely pick that up because it was something I was thinking about but wasn't going to buy, which I think happens a lot. So I think it's a good move on their part
Well,
because
now
I
you
think a lot
can-
of people were in that boat of like,
Now you can claim it and just have it ready for when you have a PS5.
yeah, exactly. It's always been like a series that I'm like, this series has existed for a long time, probably never going to play it. But now, who knows?
Now, for
Yeah,
Days
but
Gone,
Days Gone-
is it already on
Oh,
the PlayStation
well, Days Gone-
collection for PS5?
It is. So this is
Yeah,
the
it is
PS4
in the
only.
PlayStation collection.
Yeah.
I have claimed that it will be my first PS5 game that
So
I
you
play.
Yeah. You
So I
can't
don't
play it
even
on
know if I
PS4.
should realistically play it until I get a PS5. I don't know if this is for me, but I'm glad that as many people
It
as
is for
possible
you, Zach.
will be able to play this amazing game.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah. Joseph St. Cloud, he's coming to PlayStation Plus.
Yep.
Big news.
That's exciting. Yeah. Yeah, they've been hitting it hard the last few months on PS Plus. It's been really cool to see.
Yeah, big stuff. And
I
then
know,
of course,
right?
you've
Coming
got,
off of Final Fantasy VII.
You got Final Fantasy VII, and then you've got the whole play at home thing with just a bunch of free games, and that's still ongoing. Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition's going to be coming to that this month, and then you would assume
all the
that there's
VR
at least
games,
all the VR games, all the non-VR games, and you have to assume that there's at least one more month of big games in June for this play at home initiative. So they've, in terms of PS Plus and that, they've been hitting it hard with the free games offerings.
Yeah. Let's move on. More bummer news, though, also has to do with PlayStation. They're shutting down the PlayStation 3 and PSP store on July 2nd, and the PS Vita store on August 27th. They're closing them down. No plans on how these games are going to remain playable, so as of now, they're not. So anything you want, you have a few months to buy, 3 months for PS3, PSP, 4.5 months for Vita, and it's just a big bummer. I want to start up by saying this week I published a piece on IGN that I'm going to plug about digital game sales and how they're overtaking physical sales, and I talked to these analysts.
I would recommend.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
thank you. And it talked about how basically this is happening no matter what. Digital games are overtaking physical, and obviously, from our standpoint, the most frightening thing is when things like this happen, when games get shut down on these digital storefronts and aren't accessible anymore. And that's what's happening here with these. So, Kevin, you're a big proponent of physical media and preserving these games. So how does this story make you feel?
Well, the one positive I will say is that at the very least you can re-download any games that you already own. That was something that people were worried about, and PlayStation hadn't commented on it for a little while, and that would have sucked if you couldn't, because then that basically means everything is just tied to your console, and if your console dies, then all your games go with it. So at the very least, there's that. But yeah, this sucks. I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of games on there that are exclusive to a digital space and that didn't really get physical copies. And I think it still sucks, but what I'm more worried about is what comes next. Because at the very least, in the PS3 generation and Xbox 360 generation, it was still a lot of physical, and digital was starting to kind of come into the space. So by the end of it, digital had become more common. But from what I think I was reading your article, right? And it was that 5 to 10% was digital at the end of the last generation, start of next generation, and here we're reaching heights of basically
now it's half. Yeah.
So at the time, physical was still very common, and you can still go out and buy a lot of these physical games. What I'm more worried about now is that PS4, I think a much larger portion of those games are sold digitally, and I think the numbers back it up. So when we get to the point where maybe the PS4 store is shut down, what does that mean? When there's a lot more games, both the fact that there's less physical games being sold and the fact that more games are digital only, that's going to be a much bigger deal. I think that this sucks, and some games are going to be lost, but I think it's just more damning moving forward of what could happen to some of these stores where it is a lot more digital focused, not only with less physical copies being sold, but just the greater majority of games that are digital only with indie games. And the other thing I'll say is that in the article from Engadget, they quoted Sony as saying they're doing this in an effort to focus our resources for PlayStation Store and PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, which will enable us to enhance the customer experience even further. And that rubs me the wrong way when you have Xbox enhancing their store of Series X by having the entire catalog of Xbox games from the original Xbox available on their store. You could refocus your resources to just create an ecosystem where you can play everything, or at the very least bring PS1 and PS2 back if PS3 is too difficult to work with. It's just crazy to me that you have one company that is completely embracing the entire back catalog of their games and another one just seemingly forgetting that they exist.
Two other ones.
And
barely
Nintendo.
Any virtual console on Switch.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Like I look at I mean, in 3 or 4 years, we could see the Wii U store shut down. And there are so many virtual console games on that thing. There's from N64. It has every Nintendo console almost. It has DS games. It has Game Boy games, Game Boy Advance. It has N64. It has Wii games. It's just basically missing GameCube games, and there's no 3DS games. But that has its own story. Yeah, which it should be a no-brainer. But yeah, it's just frightening, and something I think about in terms of physical media is just how games are just the most difficult to preserve, because you look at like TV show, it's like this is something that I'll probably always be able to find somewhere, right? Because it's a passive medium. It's like, okay, it's on this streaming service, it's here, it's here, it's here. With games, you need a specific box and a specific controller to access these titles. And the further we get away from some of these, the harder it's going to be to access. You look back at the NES, Super Mario Brothers will always work if you just put in that cartridge and boot it up, assuming that the hardware still works, right? That's the hiccup there, is that this is nearing 40-year-old hardware at this point. But something on PlayStation, even physical media is no longer a guarantee anymore moving forward. For now it is, but in 30, 40 years, are you going to be able to pop in The Last of Us Part 2 and still find that day one update you need to play the game at its best? I don't know. Because now games require so many installs and updates and downloads that even physical copies aren't a guarantee for preservation anymore. You'll always have a base version of them. But, I mean, you look at something like Monster Hunter World. Iceborne's a huge expansion that's digital only. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I have 10 characters that aren't on my cart. It's just really scary. And this is a major publisher saying, hey, we're getting rid of these because we're moving forward. And it's just really frightening for now, and like you were saying, Kevin, going forward.
Yeah. Zach, any thoughts on this year? You've been a PlayStation fan throughout these generations.
Yeah, PlayStation has always been stingy in terms of backwards compatibility with its games. I know the PS3 store was a big place where people go to buy PS2 games and maybe some PS1 games that never came to PS4 digitally, and now they're probably only part of the PS Now subscription service. So I'd say if you got the chance, if you're looking backwards towards PS2, PS1, check out the PS3 store before it's gone. That's probably one of the biggest things you'll want to be looking at. I know I'm probably just going to go sifting through just in case. But yeah, it does suck to see. I don't know how much allocation of resources it takes to keep something like that alive. I don't know if it's way more trouble than it's worth at this point. So I can't really fault them for doing it if it is a big amount of resources taking them away, because it is so old at this point. But like Logan said, I just hopping forward a generation from where we are now, when they decide to close down the PS4 store, I'm like, what is that going to be like? It's going to be a different ballpark when all of these games that require updates and downloads, if those ever become unavailable, then these base games are just going to be grosser and grosser as we continue to move forward.
If they do close down the PS4 store, because the PS4 and PS5 store are basically the same store. Yeah. So I'm not sure. It's a really similar infrastructure. And if you guys remember, the reason that they said PS3 wasn't backwards compatible on PS4 is because they really rebuilt the architecture to make it more future-proof and kind of more in line with PC and things like that, easier for developers too. So maybe from PS4 onward, that will be a store that lives for the next number of decades.
You hope.
Don't really know. Yeah, you'd hope so. But as a Vita owner, this sucks because I have not taken full advantage of that system. There's a lot of cool games on Vita that I'd really like to play. But honestly, the main thing that's been holding me back is that the memory cards are so freaking expensive that I've never wanted to invest. But now I almost feel like I have to. I feel like I have to go out and buy this big memory card and fill it up with all these games before they're gone.
And I think Vita would probably give you a pretty good look into what a future problem like this would be like in terms of less physical media, because at least in the States, physical media for Vita did not sell very well. Like there's not a ton of physical Vita copies. So that could be kind of a window into what a future where digital has taken over for the most part and a store eventually shuts down, what that physical landscape could look like, where these games possibly jump in value because there's just not a lot of them out there. And it's the only way to access some of these games if they're lucky enough to have a physical cart or disc.
Yeah, the Vita section at like GameStop is smaller than the Wii U section, and that is saying
like for
something.
Years too. Like even when the Vita was a little bit more to be little bit more alive, I would like walk by and there's like 6 games on the shelf, and half of them had just like the GameStop like sleeve instead of the actual like thing. Man, I have to imagine that some of those Vita games will get expensive. Thank God Persona 4 Golden escaped.
Yep.
Now you just gotta hope for somehow that Uncharted game to get out of there. Probably won't, but
it can probably be left. I think that's okay.
But I mean, it just sucks that some of these games will be nearly inaccessible.
Yep, it really sucks. It's a big concern, and I think we've all been going digital a little more often. Like Zach and I got Rise digitally. We just been leaning more in that direction, and for some games it's fine, but for some, like every Zelda, I will have physically. Like there's some series that I will just never go digital, just because there's something I want to be able to play whenever with no questions asked.
Yeah, and with digital, you never know. But like you said, physical is trending in that direction too, where you also don't know. Because, man, some of these games, especially ones that need a lot of patches, the one that's put on disc is may not be the best version of the game. And that's why I appreciate when companies will do definitive editions of games and put the DLC on the disc. I hate it when companies, like, for example, Spider-Man. Spider-Man had a complete edition that came out, and I was going to get it, and then I realized that the DLC was just a download code. I'm like, screw it, I'll just get it digitally. Like, that's like... It's so dumb to me when it's like, hey, here's the disc, and just put all the DLC on a one-time use DLC code that expires. Like, I appreciate the companies that put the entire experience with all of the DLC attached onto the cart/disc, so that you can access it at any time. Witcher 3 does that, and it's great.
Yeah, and besides just DLC, you've got games that are only digital. On these stores that are going to be gone, and that's something that's just really scary. It's like, you won't be able to find that anywhere. And it's like, I was talking about how other mediums are accessible elsewhere. Like music, you can just look it up on YouTube and listen to almost any song, right? And something like a game, you can watch Let's Plays. It's not the same as playing it. And eventually, if these consoles even completely lose disc drives, what does that mean? Because something like a lot of cars are removing their CD drives now, right?
PCs have already removed their disc drives years ago. My PC doesn't have a disc drive anymore.
But there will always be USB disc drives or ways to rip CDs onto a computer and then put onto your phone or through Spotify. There's always workarounds to access music or shows or things like that. But it's like games are the most rigid software in terms of accessing them and what you need to be able to access them and play them in their intended form. So it sucks, but that's the way it's going, and this is just another big indicator of that.
And it just makes me happy at the very least that right now Microsoft is embracing that back catalog. So that
makes me want an Xbox.
Don't vanish.
Me too.
And like in terms of the games that are coming out on PlayStation, of course I want to be there for play, Spider-Man on PS5. I want to play the new Horizon, but man, everything
Final
that I've been
Fantasy.
hearing about Xbox in terms of just like how user friendly it is with the smart delivery, with like the quick resume, with the fact that the entire ecosystem with every system of Xbox is just easily accessible on there. Like they're still working on the exclusive games that are hopefully going to be here in the next couple of years, but at the very least in terms of a user experience, ease of access situation to get as many Xbox games as possible available, they are knocking it out of the park.
Absolutely. I think we're running real long, so we're gonna skip our last news story so we can hear about Destroy All Humans.
Hey, oh, Zach, this is your segment.
Is it?
Yeah. What we've been playing.
Oh, good. What about it? Oh, just what we've been playing. I was like,
Zach
I haven't
got
played
lost
Destroy All
partway through
Humans. I don't even know what we're talking about. But yes, we're moving on briefly to what we've been playing this week. I know we've talked in length about some of the bigger titles, but there are some smaller things that we've had some time to dive into. Sounds like Kevin, more specifically, has beaten a game recently.
I did, beat Destroy All Humans, Talked about it for a while. I've owned it for a while. Finally got around to playing it and beating it. It was a good time, but it was nothing spectacular. And I guess that's
how I remember the original.
That's kind of what I expected going in. There is a sense of nostalgia to going back to a game that is very much based in that like older design philosophy of just having these like levels where it gives you like an open area to explore, but it's very mission based. So you go into the mission, you do the mission, you hop out, and then maybe you go back into that world to go do another mission. Like there's something nice about going back and playing a game like that as compared to just something that is entirely open world. I kind of like going back to the mission setup. What really annoyed me was the loading times. Those things are long, and that makes the mission structure a little bit worse when I am sitting through. So you load into the game and you pick a mission, it loads in, and you've got like the little loading bar in the corner, the little loading spinning circle. And then there's a little saving circle that appears after 10 to 15 seconds. It'll save. And then the loading circle shows back up again. And maybe the saving circle will come back in for a second, and then you hop into the level. And it's like 20 to 30 seconds easy, if not longer, for a game that is not that big in scope. There's other weird little things where, like, when you hop into a level, usually you'll have one of the characters talking to you about what's going on in the mission. And like half the time, like by the time I had loaded in, he had already said like the first 2 words. So it got like cut off, and he was just like already going on his like little speech. I'm like, did I miss something here? So I guess it's just not particularly optimized. There's some like pop in as well. It kind of reminds me of a Battle for Bikini Bottom, and it's from the same publisher, THQ Nordic, of just like, it looked like they just needed a little bit more time to iron things out, to fix the loading screens, or to make them a little bit shorter, to get rid of some of the pop in. But once I was playing the game and once I was going through, I still just had fun. It's dumb fun. You're an alien and using all these powers to just vaporize people or take control of their bodies or whatever, to do some like light stealth sections, but you don't have to do the stealth. It's like optional objectives, but you can just bust in and kill everybody and go through. So it gives you the option to do that. The story's nothing special. The last bosses can get pretty annoying, where it's like a 3-wave boss fight, and if you die on any of the waves, you have to go back to the start of the boss fight.
Nice.
Which is weird because the checkpoints are quite forgiving. Like there's certain, once you get like a new objective in the mission to do, it'll respawn you at the start of the next objective if you've gotten to that point. So it's kind of weird to me that it wouldn't do the same for the boss fights. You have to start right back over from the beginning. So some of those can get a little bit terrifying near the end, where you're just like, I just need to win here. I'm almost dead. But it was fun for what it was. And I do hope that at the very least they try and do Destroy All Humans too, because I've heard that game is better, and I'd be willing to give it a shot. So if you played it back in the day, you've probably already played it. But if you haven't yet, I would say if you had a good time with it back in the day, pick this one up again. And if you're curious about it, I'd say it's worth a look on a sale. But just go in knowing that it's probably not going to blow you away. I don't think the original is ever going to be that. But there is something about something a little bit simpler that isn't trying to be this like huge crazy game that you can just like hop in and have some fun with. Those types of games I miss sometimes from the early to mid 2000s. So it fit in well for me. And then 13 Sentinels. I started that up the other day, and it is good. It is quite good. I'll get the negatives out of the way. Why did they have to make the people that go into the mechs lose their clothes? I don't get it. They pull the anime
Sounds
thing
pretty anime.
where it's like in the first like 5 minutes you get some side boob of them in the mech. I'm like, come on, why do you have to do that? And it annoys me that that's there because everything else is so good. Like the art style is fantastic. I love like what it looks like, very like a hand-drawn art style, but the characters' movements are very fluid when they're running through the areas that you're given. I'm surprised at how in-depth the combat is, where you're in these mechs on this like map, and you just have to go around the map and like and kill the aliens that are coming in, and it gives you a lot of options in terms of leveling up all of your different characters, and it gives you upgrade trees for each of their abilities and attacks. I was under the impression that it was mainly just story with a little bit of combat, but there is a little bit something to the combat, and of course you've got like side objectives in these areas to do. So the combat has it caught me off guard with how many options there are. And then, of course, the story. It is. I'm having a bit of a hard time following it because. So it's 13 Sentinels. There are 13 characters, and once you get past the opening tutorial area, you can choose between the 13 characters to like go through their storylines. And you start out after the tutorial with maybe 9 of them, and as they're introduced in other people's stories, you unlock them to be able to like choose and play. And there's like 4 or 5 different timelines of like you've got 1945, World War II, 1944, you've got 1985. You've got 2025 because they're hopping between times, and how they explain it is that their time hopping can only go in 40-year intervals. So there's like different sections, and they're like hopping back and forth. So it's one of those games where I'm like, I can't put this down because there's so many moving parts and all of these characters in all of these different time periods and like hopping between them that I need to keep up with it.
You'd be done if you put it down.
So I'm just playing. I'm planning to play through to it till the end in one go. Try not to pick up anything else. But yeah, so far the story has been quite good as long as I've been able to keep track of everything that's going on. And from what I've heard, it only gets better as you go along, and that there's some like really big twists, and I can already kind of see some of them starting to form. It's one of those games where you can't talk too much about it because a lot of the things that you learn are these surprises that you're supposed to have of these characters and who they are in the future, in the past, or something like that. But 5 or 6 hours in, I think the combat has pleasantly surprised me, and besides some of the anime weirdness that is in here, I think that the story is holding up its end of the bargain too. I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Cool.
Great.
Yeah.
Logan, anything else that you haven't talked about?
Nope. I bought Crash 4, but I haven't played it yet.
Oh, you bought Crash 4?
Exciting.
Was it,
yeah.
Spring sale?
The PS5 version launched, and it launched for $30. So I grabbed it.
Deal.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Especially
buying
for the
stuff,
PS5 version.
bought the Tomb Raider collection that they came out with a little while back because it was on sale for $20. So I'll play those in like 4 years. Get to them eventually. Zach, anything you've been playing?
Yeah, as for me, I had a hard time deciding what to play next after Final Fantasy IX. I didn't really want to start something too big, knowing that that Monster Hunter Rise would be taking up a lot of my time. So I've kind of been diving into a little bit into different things. I started Jak 3. I've tended to replay these Jak games, once every year or so now. I think back in 2019, I played Jak Precursor Legacy, and then last year I played Jak 2, and now this year I've jumped into Jak 3. Jak 3 is one of my favorites out of all three, which
better than
is saying a lot,
Jak 2.
the first one's very good.
First one,
and then 2's.
I mean, 2 and 3 are very different than 1, so it's kind of hard to compare them.
I know they're very hard to compare because it feels like a completely different game to 1, but I think that it stands on its own merit in terms of interesting story, added gameplay, and forgiving difficulty, unlike
bogus,
the second one.
Jak 2 is brutal.
So I think and I love the driving mechanic that they add into the desert. So a lot of fun to be had there. I'm not super far into my replay of the game, only a few hours, having a good time so far. It's not a particularly long game, and I've played it before, so I don't think it will take me very long to beat. So should have finished impressions of if I still enjoy that game at the end in the not too distant future. And then rewatched all the Dark Knight movies, so I felt like playing Batman Arkham Knight, which I had replayed the Arkham Asylum and Arkham City games a year or so ago. Yeah. Yes. So I replayed those, and then I started replaying Arkham Knight back in August and just never continued on with it. I only played for like an hour. So I re-downloaded it because I deleted it for space. And then now I'm gradually going through that game. I love those games. They're all very good. I think they're, in terms of one of the most seamless combats, very similar to how Spider-Man plays. And then I love the slew of Batman villains. There's someone for everyone. There's so many villains in that game, so many mysteries, and just a great story. So definitely excited to get back into that.
Nice.
Cool.
But yeah, I assume
that's it.
Rise has taken up a good portion of the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And
30-ish hours.
So good.
All right. Because of all those new games, no Ode 2 this week. Any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up?
I am buying another new game this month. Anyone have a guess? I think I already
That's
told
coming
Zach.
out this month.
Yes.
Pokemon Snap.
No, I'm not going to
That's
get Pokemon Snap.
I'm getting
That's a
Pokemon Snap.
decent pick.
Good guess, though.
Man,
Good guess.
what comes out this month?
Returnal, but it's not that.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't even know what else comes out besides the thing I'm thinking of. I'm buying in. I'm getting MLB The Show this year. I have a couple friends that want to play some online modes and figure why not get the first one on PS5. The last one I bought was in 2017 when I got my PlayStation.
So does that mean that this is going to be your first $70 title?
I think so.
Ooh,
Oh,
God.
Oof. On a
And it's a
sports
sports
title.
game.
Sports game.
Oh, that thing's going to be $5 next year.
The way I look at it, I get like 4. I only buy one of these every few years. I don't do the annual, so
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I guess that a multiplayer enticement was enough to make me buckle on the $70 buy-in. But yeah, it looks really good on PS5 from what I've seen, and it's coming to Xbox, and I think it has crossplay between all consoles, so it just seems like a good entry to buy in on.
That's cool that they're bringing it to Xbox.
Yeah.
Because what? MLB 2K hasn't even been around for years. Because
No,
that was
so
crap.
RBI Baseball,
RBI Baseball, which is...
and Super Mega Baseball, which is really good, but not real players, have been
Right.
the only Xbox baseball games.
And then RBI Baseball is just disgusting.
It's horrible. It's so bad. But yeah, I'm excited for the show.
Man, RBI Baseball must really be looking forward to MLB The Show, because then their sales are going to go from a lot to just absolutely nothing. And everyone's like,
Nothing.
oh, I can buy a real baseball game.
Yeah.
Oh, they're screwed. Oh, man. Zach, anything for you before we wrap this up?
Just excited to play some more Monster Hunter. It's just gonna be how it is for the next few years.
A few years. It's all I'll be playing for the next several years.
Yep.
That's it.
Well,
We're beating Mario for next week.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that I'm
Should-
very excited for.
Should beat that this weekend. I have played some more of that. I'm on the final world of that
nice.
on the single player
It's
one,
a
but
fun game.
it's a good time. So yes, we should be able to talk about that on next week.
Oh, I was playing 64.
Oh, is
Never
there
mind,
any,
don't-
have you run into any new
Oh.
bogus, or is it all the same crap?
I haven't put a lot more time into it, but it hasn't gotten less bogus. I'll
Man,
just
you're
say that.
Mario. We're already into April, man. You gotta you gotta get going on that. There's a couple of games.
I'll
in
have
there.
one beaten by next week. Easy.
True. And you just got all the other ones. All right. Keep us updated on the year of Mario, Zach,
Do.
because we're already 3 months in. Good luck on that. All right. That is going to do it for us on this week's episode of Ode to Games. We're here on Friday this week, but that could be changing as early as next week. So keep updated on that. Starting next week, we possibly have a new time that this thing's going to be launching. But as for this week, we're here Friday. We've been on Fridays the last couple of years on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, other podcast streaming services that you may use. It's on our website, odetogames.com. The video version of the podcast is on our YouTube page, so you can find that at Ode to Games if you want to catch the video version there. You can find us on Twitter at Ode to Games. You can send an email to odegames@gmail.com. For Logan and Zach, I'm Kevin. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.